Morning, everybody. It is 8:25 a.m. It is December 8th. Welcome to my channel. Markets on Friday pushed up, right, and then fell right back. Now, I know there was a lot of talk about the Netflix merger, and because the market was pretty fairly strong off the open. Hold on a second. As I was saying, the market was fairly strong and was looking to break out. And I'm not really even sure exactly what came out. I don't know if it was a Netflix merger or something came out because the price action was kind of weird. It really was. Because it looked like it was going to rip back up, break the highs, and then it just started to like get weaker. But then it just died. And I was actually in some longs, and I was adding to my long, and I was up. And I was like, all right, we should break these highs. That's what I was looking for. High day break. And then all of it, out of sort of nowhere, just this violent price action came back lower. Like I said, I still was trying to figure out why that happened because it wasn't normal price action, but that's just trading. And then we just traded in a range, basically. All right, we'll go over some of the other details in a little bit, like on the hourly chart. This market is consolidating and grinding higher. Every day you get like these whippy action. So we'll go up, we'll sell off, right? We go down, we get bought up. So it's kind of more scalpy. Not the easiest trade to just want to sit there and hold because every time you do that, it looks like the market's going to do something and then it recovers either way. So that's the kind of market we have. All right, this week we have FOMC on Wednesday. I can see the VIX is up and probably people hedging for the FOMC. So let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets along supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. I also use market internals. I use Anchor VWAPs and Bookmap along with the expected move for the week. I posted that this morning on my Discord for free. Okay, I ran that script. That's a really important. Yeah, last week was very interesting. A lot of stocks hit their expected moves to the downside and to their upside. That just tells you all you need to know about the market. And they're important. Like I don't have any stocks that are just meaningless. They're all important stocks that move markets, and a bunch hit upsides and downsides. So the very you could right there alone is like, all right, that like what are we doing here, right? And it made sense the way the market was moving. It really made sense the way the market was moving. Okay. Now, hopefully, you join me every day, every morning, give you the market story, market news, economic calendar, leaders and laggards, and basically the market, why the market's doing what it's doing. All right. Follow that with a bunch of technical analysis, and then I give you long and short trade scenarios in the Nasdaq and the ES futures. All right. If you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. All right. Give it intraday commentary. We can go on live most days, so that's why some posts I post a little less when I'm live. So, because you're getting me live commentary, exactly what I'm seeing, what the market's capable of. All right. And like I said, on Friday, it looked all good until it didn't to go up higher. Right. The market's just grinding up. All right. All right. Let's move on to the featured watch list here. What's moving markets this morning? We have a VIX. VIX is up, it's most likely hedging for FOMC. All right, at a 16.30 VIX. Ethereum's up 4.09%, Bitcoin's up 2.62, Russell's up 0.52, Nasdaq's up 0.25, 10-year yield's up 0.19, ES up 0.13, Dow's flat, dollar's flat, 30-year bonds slightly being sold, pretty much flat, down 0.08, gold down 0.27, silver down 0.86, and crude is down 1%, still under $60 a barrel. Moving on to the Mag 7 Plus here, you have Broadcom reports earnings this week. Okay, Broadcom. All right, they're up 2.8, maybe earnings run up. Right, Coinbase up 1.77. Netflix with the Warner Brothers acquisition. Trump's gonna see if he approves that or not. AMD's up. What else here? Who's lagging today? We have Meta's down 0.46, but they're at 670. They were at like 570, 580 not too long ago. That thing moves like a champion. Berkshire Hathaway down 0.64, and Tesla is down 1.47%. Okay, moving on, top sectors. Oracle also reports earnings, and that was getting slammed prior, like slammed. It was at 400s, now it's at 220. Okay, they also report. All right, Visa up 0.59, Uber's up 0.47. Laggard here is Home Depot, United Healthcare. We're going to go to some granular list here. Let's see who's moving this morning. We have Carvana. I believe they're added to the S&P 500. Oklo Nuclear. Okay, up 3.42. I believe that's... I could be wrong. I think that's Hess, but I could be wrong. Looks at that. NextEra Energy up 2.85. That's utilities. Micron up 2.54. Bitcoin ATF. D-Wave, Chris Therapeutics, let's see here, Pinterest, Western Digital, they're all up over 2%. And who's on the downside here? Let's see here. Marvell, Semi is down 6.38, Lucid down 4.47, and CoreWeave is down 4.12. That's your granular list. All right. Let's move on to sectors here. Semis are leading the pack. That's your Broadcom. Okay. Let's see here. That is up almost 1%. Utilities up 0.46. That's your NextEra Energy. Technology is up 0.42. The laggard today is discretionary. That's what your Tesla getting that little bit of a negative, and it's not really down much. All right. That is your watch list here. Let's just move on to the economic calendar. All right, let's move on. Today, let's see. Let's go down to a 1 star to see what's today. Today, consumer inflation expectations at 11. 3-month bill auction, 6-month, 3-year. There's really not much today. All right, for the week, JOLTS jobs. Then we have FOMC on Wednesday. That's PPI and core PPI on Thursday. All right, and some Fed speak on Friday. Okay. Now let's look at the juice. Trump participates in a roundtable at 2 o'clock. That's all that I'm seeing for today. All right, let's get into some stock news here. Netflix stock rose 0.6 after, and Warner Brothers Discovery fell 0.6 after President Donald Trump said on Sunday that he would have a say whether a proposed merger should go forward, indicating concerns about potential antitrust issues. Tesla stock fell 1.3 after Morgan Stanley downgraded its stance on the EV manufacturer to equal weight from overweight, saying it waits for a better entry as the stock is now trading close to fair value. Berkshire Hathaway fell 0.5 after the conglomerate announced the departure of among them departure of Todd Combs, investment officer and Geico CEO to JP Morgan. Interesting. Broadcom stock rose 2.4 and Oracle gained 1.4 with these chip companies set to report quarterly results this week. Just as valuations of technology companies are in the spotlight, Carvana stock jumped 8.6. After the S&P Dow Jones indices announced that the three companies have secured a spot in the benchmark S&P 500, like I just told you before. Lennar stock fell 0.16 after Barclays downgraded the home construction company to underweight. There you go. All right, let's see. What is this? Magnum tests investor appetite for ice cream in 9.1 billion Amsterdam listing. Interesting. Fed could find itself in a bind as it sets the stage for Powell's successor. IBM nears 11 billion confluent deal to boost cloud push. Eli Lilly's Mounjaro added to China's state insurance list for diabetes treatment. Trump says he will be involved in a review of Netflix we just talked about. We're expecting a cut this week, basically. That was off the table for a little bit. It's back on the table. Looks like Oracle got a price target cut here to 330 from 400, reflective of investor caution about AI bubble and growing worries over funding risks. Okay, that's the news and the schedule. Let's look if there's any other upgrades or downgrades here. Let's see. Upgrades today, if I didn't mention them here. Devon Energy upgraded. General Motors upgraded. Novartis upgraded. Ulta Beauty upgraded. Interesting. Any downgrades here? This list is sometimes not that great. Oop. We have Lucid. That's why that's down. Lennar. We know about that. Marvell downgraded. That's why that is down as well. Netflix downgraded. Interesting. Netflix downgraded. It's not affecting the stock right now. All right, moving on. We're going to go right into market internals, show you the strength of the internals that were on the open. Pretty nice. All right, we opened up and it was just like, okay, I guess we're breaking out finally. And like I said, it was all set. I had one of my favorite setups, strong internals with the poor high in the market profile and just strength everywhere. And I was like, all right, I guess this is maybe the day we move. And like I said, that weird price action happened, right? Because you could see the sheer strength. And then just, and then it was just chop. Then it was just chop. You know, you could still see the all top four sectors were green. Only laggard was healthcare. That put a little damper on it, but I mean, like I said, it was all set to move higher. All set to move higher. But that's what we're doing. You can see here. Let's see here. We'll get into the charts in a little bit. That's your market internals recap. Let's move on to daily charts now. Okay, so pretty easy to see on my express chart, right? Because these are last month's highs. That's November's monthly highs. And look at that market. It went all the way up here, not too far from all-time highs, and then had a wick. Now, does this become a swing high? I don't know. I don't know. That's pretty nice selling, right? So you can see the previous week's highs, we made a new weekly range above that. Okay, we held above the previous week's highs. Okay, this trend line has been broken. All right, this consolidation here, we just keep grinding higher, right? And then what did we come up to? I said this was going to be a key resistance right here about the 685s, right? Where we broke it, and I was like, ooh, wow, this is going to be, and then it fell apart. Okay, this market's just been kind of choppy. Where are we now? 686.60. 686.60, which would bring us like in the middle of the range, which is not the best location. Okay, let's look at futures. Futures here. You can see market came up to last month's highs. This was last week. Now in futures, because in this chart, because the futures is opened, it's showing you last week's highs right here. Okay, and you can see just a doji for the session this morning in the middle of the session of Friday, just like I was saying, right? And you have strong daily supply. Let's see if that was broken. That was not broken. So see this daily supply zone? Those are beasts. They're hard to get through. And you have another daily supply zone right here. So they're a beast. And it's just hard to push through those, especially when you don't have all the strength of a market firing on all cylinders. Okay, so that's makes sense. It really does. Okay, and you can see again this pattern, this big neckline here around the 6900s, left shoulder, right shoulder, and then the head, inverse head and shoulders. And if we just push up here, this could be the Santa Claus break, and I don't know. Okay, Q's. All right, here's our Q's, just grinding up higher. Remember this level I talked about as well, the 625s, big time resistance here, and we broke it on Friday. We couldn't quite fill that gap above us, but again, just like, all right, thought we were going to break out, and then we didn't, right? So where are we now? 627.25, right around here. So a little more than half above halfway in the Qs. Okay, this trend line has been broken. Okay, another inverse head and shoulders. I don't need to draw it again. Still have that gap overhead us. Okay, the gap is still unfilled above us. Let's look at that in the NASDAQ futures. Okay, here's your daily supply zone above us. Right, here's another daily supply. Did we break that finally? Yes, we did. In futures, we did. That little tail broke this daily supply, but you still have heavy resistance right here. Just caught around the 258s to 259s. Heavy resistance, and then you have another daily supply zone over here. That starts at around 260. 260. Okay. Like I said, this is the way the market's moving. It's kind of ugly. I mean, look at these candles. They're just like it's it's weird. It's grinding. Okay, it's grinding. All right, that's our look at futures. Let's look at the breadth real quick. Just get a feeling of the overall breadth of the market here. We are at 54% of stocks in the S&P 500 are over their 50-day simple moving average. That tells us everything, kind of, right? Our market is middling. It's not a strong number. It's not a weak. Obviously, 50% is half and half, basically. So that really kind of tells you the story of what's going on with our market. All right. If we want to do a little sector roundup here, let's do that real quickly. Let's look at our top sectors really quickly. Let's look at the technology. That's about 34% of our market cap. Looks like the Qs, right? Kind of just grinding up. Had a nice day, right, on Friday. Let's look at semis. It looks very similar usually to the technology. Then we'll go to financials. Financials here, look at that. It's kind of hitting heavy resistance here. Okay, this is just how the markets move. All right, discretionary, that's your Amazon, your Tesla, your Home Depot. That's just consolidating, right? And then we have your communications right here. Communications has been looking nice. That's your Meta and your Google. Okay, you can see it hit a key resistance here. Okay, industrials here. It's your Boeing, your Uber, your GE. All right, you can just see why the market's kind of acting like it is, hitting resistance points, right? It's just middling. It's really not. And then healthcare, let's look at that. Healthcare was on a meteoric rise and then it pulled back. See, profit taking happened in healthcare. Staples actually had a nice run as well and pulled back. Okay, Staples had a nice run and pulled back. Okay, that's a little sector roundup there. Let's look at the hourly chart. Let's look at these hourlies. All right, we're kind of in a channel and we broke out of it and then we went right back into it. I'm going to show you guys that. Here's our hourly charts. All right, so you can see this channel really being honored. I mean, really being honored to the downside. To the upside, honored, 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 honored. And then we broke it. And I was like, oh, wow, we're breaking out of it. Now, we went into a major supply. Remember, I talked about the thicker line supply zones on my charts are heavier. They're 6 hours and above supply zones, right? Then we sold off a little bit, right? And you can see the sheer buying that comes in. And you can see this every day we sell off. Look at these like wicks that really come in. I mean, sellers just don't get follow through. These buyers just, it's like they're sopping it up like a sponge. And then it just wicks, wicks, wicks. And then we move a little higher, right? So this was really key. Probably longs taking profits, and then it just became choppy. And now we went up a little bit, and we're doing not much today. All right, and you can see the relative volume is very low today. We're at 54% and 52% in the Nasdaq. That is not the best at all. All right, you can just see the sheer size of the candles are smaller. But this channel, you know, and supply and last month's highs and last week's highs, what do we do when we come back up here? Because maybe we do this and we rotate back to the other side of the channel. Like I said, I don't know. I really don't. It's just doing this channel, this upwards slope channel, right? I would say this swing little low is pretty probably pivotal. Say if we take that out, we probably could test down here. Don't know. Okay. That's your hourlies. There's not much to really delve into here. Major supply, last month's highs, last week's highs. That's really how you have to look at it. Make it simple. There's not like, it's not rocket science. Okay. Now you do have a nice trend line here. And let's see if we can make a channel here. Let's see. And that's pretty much the channel for the Nasdaq. Okay. And we're just, I feel like this is a better uptrend in the Nasdaq than the ES. You can just see the sheer, it's just funny how the overnights, look at these consolidations in the overnights. I mean, every overnight is like these little consolidations. Look, we're doing it again. I mean, what a pattern that is. Okay. So, still an ultimate balance at 256s, right? We're in the middle of the channel here. We're hitting that we're hitting a supply zone. That's not a major one. There's last week's highs. So this is not the best location at all. Okay. Do you have some demand zones here? They're not major demand zones. So it's either we're going to do one of these, and there's a gap around the 259s that is unfilled above us. Okay, there's a gap. I thought we were heading towards that gap. That's what it felt like. It felt like we're heading towards that gap, but we didn't. We didn't. Okay. Who knows? We might need to touch that gap to get this, to get this. I don't know, right? It's grinding higher. I mean, you can't really say anything but, oh, we're grinding higher. Okay. That's the hourly charts. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the market profile and the volume profile now. And get a nice look at the ES here. All right, so this is your market profile and volume profile. All right. Here we are. And you can see very clearly on this composite composite volume profile of the last rolling week. That's a very balanced profile. I mean, it's a very balanced profile, right? So what else can we glean from that, right? Well, we know we're kind of in balance, and we keep like breaking a little higher, pulling back, breaking. It's grinding, right? So we're gonna look at this like this, right? There's Friday's highs. There's Friday's. You got a poor low. You got a poor low right here, and not the best highs, but you do have a little bit of excess here. But you do have a poor low that usually gets corrected. There's your range from Friday, and the overnight range is inside it. Not the best location to be. Here's your midpoint, your 50% retracement of Friday. We're right there. You want to get chopped? You want to get razor blades? 1,000 death by 1,000 cuts? Yeah, you probably trade there, right? You probably trade there. It's not the best area. Okay. So what I'm gonna concentrate on is value area low and the overnight lows, and go all the way down to the most traded price, which is around 68.63. That's where you want to be active. Okay. On the other side, you have Friday's highs, last week's highs, obviously, right? Overnight highs. This is the area you want to be active in. Okay. There's just not a lot to do in this area, right? So pretty simple. Now we are in a major supply zone up here. Okay, we are. So let's just break it out because there's not much to really dive into here. It's kind of simple. Okay, got a little bit of a compressed range. All right, let's just get into the scenarios. Okay, start with the bull side. Okay, and what I would say is this is a pretty strong supply. Okay, last week's highs is up here. All right, now maybe this is the most traded price of Friday. Now you can see there's some support here. That's Friday's close also, right here. So this could be this could be, that's why I have a box here. There could be a pullback to here. Okay, and even if you dip below it a little bit and touch the overnight lows and recover, that could be a long. Go right up to Friday's highs. Okay, pullbacks I feel are viable. Okay, even if we come down here very quickly, take care of that poor low at 68.66, Friday's lows, and then you're going to find yourself at the most traded price of the week. I want to see what price does here. Do we come down and do we recover it? Start doing some higher lows? Well, then I feel like we're going to probably grind up. Okay. I'm not crazy about longs right here. It's poor location. It's not a great long. And then where's your risk to reward? It's not great. And you're in a supply again. I think the pullbacks here are a better shot at longs, right? And you want to go with high probability. Can you enter here and it goes higher? Of course you can. Is it something you can repeat over and over again? Probably not. You're probably going to take more losses than you are going to have wins. That's why probability, you want to lean on probability. I want a discount. I want a discount here to get long. I don't want to pay premium to go long and then go, oh my God, this is not moving. Well, yeah, it's poor location, right? So that's longs for me. Now, if we look at shorts, right? Right? So if we look at shorts, you got Friday's highs, last week's highs, right? So it's, and a lot of the stuff that I base my confidence on a long or short is internals from the open when the market opens, because I want to know what's driving the market today. I don't care about the close Friday. I want to know off the open where's strength at, because you could have a very, let's say you close, let's say in technology, right? And let's say technology closed and you're under the close now of Friday, right? Now, if you look at that, let's say you're a 0.5% lower in technology and we open up today, right? Well, it's going to show red. Technology sector will show red until you breach the close and get above the close from Friday. But what if, like on internals, I only care about what the market does, or the technology, let's say, from the open. So from the open, that's where my percentage gain or loss is shown on my internals, right? So if it's showing strength, it's going to show green for me, and it doesn't care about the close of Friday. So that's where I'm like, okay, hey, tech is driving the market from the open. That's strength. It's not weakness, but it might show red on anybody else's chart based on the close of Friday. Just wanted to give you that. Now, in a short, okay, we do have a very major supply zone, so I wouldn't mind coming in here and seeing what we do in here. Maybe we tap Friday's highs, last week's highs, and then we get some lower highs, and then we just go back into range. And maybe you hit the most traded price of Friday. If you hit that, most likely you're probably going to come down and break these lows, this poor low of 68.66, and test the most traded price of the week, which is 68.62. Now, you have the month to date. Let me see that. This is the month to date anchored VWAP right here. Okay. Those get reactions most of the time. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we come down. We have to we have to tag that. That's 68.52. I don't know, right? But what I know is this: if you break this, right, and you start to find acceptance down here, we're probably going to go down a little lower, maybe to the most traded price of the month, 68.40. Remember, we're still in ultimate balance here. It's just very tricky. The way this market's moving is very tricky. Okay, we're in December, lower volume. You know, mutual funds do distributions, dividends, stuff like that. So it's weird. I have to say it's weird. Okay, that's a short, right? That's a viable short. Okay, and I think honestly that's probably all I'm interested in. Now, don't get me wrong, a scalp that I don't know that I'm gonna see. I don't know what I'm gonna see. So like if I'm live, you know, and you hear me go, hey, I'm looking at a short here. It might be for a couple of points, right? That's something different than these scenarios, right? Because I don't know what the market's going to do, right? Nobody does. These are scenarios based on the structure that I have now in front of you. Okay, let's go to Nasdaq and we'll move on. Okay. Now let's just look at the Nasdaq. We also have a very balanced profile. Like I said, I don't need these at all. It's just nice because it just confirms, all right, we're balanced. Okay, that makes sense, right? Balance means buyers and sellers are kind of just chopping around, right? And coiling up for a big move. 256, still that major level. Major level. You want to make sure Nasdaq's over it to have confidence in some longs, right? Same thing here. Look, Friday's highs, Friday's lows, overnight highs, overnight lows. You're inside the range of Friday. Like I said, not the best area. It's really not. Now, I didn't have any good demand zones in the ES. You saw it. There wasn't really anyone, but you do have one here in the Nasdaq. Okay? So what I would say is in this area from Friday's lows, buyers just could defend it. And what do you have in here? You have Friday's close. You have Friday's most traded price. You have the overnight low. A lot of confluence. You have the breakout point, right? This level about 25732's area we broke out of, right? Well, the market's been holding that level in the overnights because the price is right here. Okay? And what seems like happening constantly is we sweep liquidity to the downside, we get bought. That's pretty much what's happening constantly. Okay? Now, do I know if that happens again? Price is actually not there. I'm sorry. It's up here. All right? I don't know why I said that. This was the close. Okay? So, a Friday. Now, what do we have to the upside? Well, we have a supply zone, right? But this is the difference. Let me let me push this down, this chart, because I want to get that gap in there. Okay. So let me see if I have the gap. Yep. Okay. So again, we have this range. Okay. Look out for buyers in that range. Okay. Now we have a supply zone. It's not as the strongest one, but we do have one. Overnight highs, Friday's highs. And what do we have above us? We have a gap. This is the gap that's unfilled. Okay. If a strong market will fill those gaps. So this is your gap. And then you do have supply inside the gap. Remember, this is a void in price action, but it's only because the overnight activity was here. Okay, but there is a supply in here. So if we have a strong market, that should get filled. That starts around 259. It's actually like 2589 something. Okay. Now we know we have ultimate balance down here, 256. I think that changes the picture. Any acceptance below 256, I think, changes the picture. We might get a correction in the market, a decent one. Till then, you're bullish. Okay? Till the market proves otherwise. That's how I use those levels. That's why I say I use the most trader price to find structure. This is the structure, right? So let's get right into scenarios here. All right. Start off with the bull side. Those good old bulls. Okay. Now, it's the same thing. Okay. You're in the middle of Friday's range. Not a great area. You're at a supply zone. Overnight highs. So the overnights are already in profit from Sunday's open. Okay. Very balanced profile. So you do have a level here, 257.90 right there. That's the most traded price of the overnights. Okay. So one thing I see a lot is if you move up, right, and maybe you tap Friday size, maybe the pullback to that 257.90 is buyable. That's the most traded price of the overnight. This could hold. You got the week to date anchor view up right here as well. And then we can try to bust out, right? Break this resistance around the 258.90 somethings. That's the gap. And then we could, if the market gets strength, we could try to fill that gap today. The gap fill is right at around 260. Right at around 260. Okay. Now, this would be fine as well. What if we get a pullback? Right? Look at that. Friday's close. Most traded price of Friday. Demand zone. Right? And at the end of this is the value area low from Friday. Right? So you get some higher lows and then we can start to grind up. I don't know how high we go. Do we fill that gap from here? I'm not sure. Okay. If there was a bear trap to happen, right? Because 256 is still important. I would like a nice flush lower into the 256s. Hit the month to date anchor view up down here around 25559. Okay. Any acceptance back over it, yeah, that's a nice long. Okay. Shorts. Let's talk about the shorts. All right, we're in supply right now at the overnight highs. Okay. And like I said, this could be a move up, break Friday's highs, step right into the gap. Now, in a gap, right, I would think most people think, oh, we're in the gap, we're probably going to fill it. Well, if you get resistance in a gap that's bearish, if you get the lower highs, right, then you can get a clear shot at the most traded price of the overnight. If you break the most traded price of the overnight, I would think we go down to the most traded price of Friday, 25733 around, and then test that support here of this demand, 25676s, and maybe Friday's lows to 256. If you break 256 and find acceptance on that month to date anchor VWAP, okay, you're going to move down to the next major demand zone at 255s and see if you can crack that 25420 support. I don't know if that happens, but that's my markers. Okay. Notice how my markers show me you go through that overnight most traded price, you're going to cause selling. You go through the most traded price of Friday, you're going to cause selling. Okay? That's just people's behavior. I know that most people traded here on Friday. You cut through that, it's going to cause selling. This is the most traded price of the month and the week. It's going to cause selling if you cut through it. Okay? That's how you look at it. You see how when I'm doing a scenario, right, these markers show me structure, show me strength, show me, ooh, if you cut through that, then this means this. If you hold it, it means this. Okay? And you can't look at that really on like a 2 minute, a 1 minute, 5 minute, and like be like, ooh, look at that, it's holding it. It's got to be at least a 30-minute bar, or not an hourly bar, where you're like, okay, it didn't break it, it held it, it closed above it or something. Okay? That's scenarios. Now, please smash that like button if you enjoyed that analysis. Help my channel out. That would be much appreciated. All right, now, please join me every morning. I give you the market story, the news, the economic calendar. Generally, I feel what's going on with the markets, right? I don't try to fluff you up and try to say, trust me, this market's breaking out, or trust me, this is the crash that we're all waiting for. That's a bunch of garbage. Okay? That's a bunch of garbage. Because I could tell you right now, someone's going to tell you they can predict these markets is a snake oil salesman. I mean, I can tell you on the day, if you're in my Discord, like what should happen today based on the snapshot of the next 15 minutes, right? And a lot of times I can call the day. But any time in the snapshot, Trump can say something. Some economic news can come out where there's a catalyst that nobody knew about. And how do you know that? You don't know that. You could just trade the price that you see, right? That's why these markets are very difficult, because out of nowhere a news event can happen and you're like, okay, I was long, or okay, I was short. I didn't expect that to come out, right? And it makes it just hard, right? It makes it hard. So I'm hoping you understand and appreciate that. Like, I'm not trying to give you a bunch of garbage. I'm trying to give you real probabilities on how to look at the market, right? And not to get tantalized into price action. That's what I'm trying to say. I lean on my internals because the market cannot outperform them. They can't. So that's where I go to that as my foundation for how I want to trade that day. Ooh, strong internals. Wow, these are strong. Well, I probably want to be in a pullback to buy it, right? Especially, of course, if it goes into a demand zone or something, right? Technology is leading. Like, I want to get long. Shorts will come, but the better is the long. And just vice versa. If internals are super weak, ticks are holding under zero, well, I'm probably going to want to short pops, right? And then I have to construct my game plan of being short. The short is probably going to be the better play. Now, scalping here, scalping there, that's not what I'm talking about, right? We're talking about the overall story of a market, right? And I'm trying to play with backtesting a little bit, of like trying to take advantage of my narration in a longer play, maybe on an hourly chart, 4 hour, hourly, and really, not try to be so exact, because when you're day trading, your entry, your stop is kind of more exact, right? You can get whipped out easily on a fake move or something, and you're like, well, my analysis was still right. So I'm starting to experiment with some trades where there may be like an intraday swing could turn into a swing, where I'm like, we should do this now. And a lot of times when I say that, I'm right. But like, let's say I try to put that on a day trade, I could still be wrong because my day trade stop gets hit. But then the overall market does what I thought it would. It just takes its time. It might need to go up a little bit, hit my stop in the day trade, and then roll over and go, well, that's what I thought would happen. So I'm trying to have some wider stops with a higher time frame, and to see, okay, I'm going to keep my stop at an extreme level. Well, I don't think the market's really going to hit. And it's been pretty interesting to see that, if you just watch and I go, this probably should happen, you do get the move eventually. It eventually does happen. It's just day trading is very exact. You have to be very correct in the little time frame, right? You can get nice moves with the little risk, but sometimes that little risks can make your little trade wrong, but it rolls over after it hits your stop, which is frustrating, right? If you think something should happen, so if you go to a higher time frame, it gives you just more room. Just sharing that with you guys, okay? Now, like stuff like I'm talking about there, it's kind of how I talk in my Discord, Confluence Trading, okay? If you want to get more intraday commentary, just like I'm talking now, you join my Discord, all right? What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator, okay? And like I say all the time, I'm not claiming to be the best trader in the world, okay? I'm still working out systems, I'm still working out processes myself. But if there's someone else that says, hey, when you say this, I've been trading it this way, all right, collaborate with me. Let's get some collaboration going. Because when I'm watching the market, it always makes sense to me. Meaning, like, if there's demand zone here, okay, this market should pop up here. This market should do this. This is probably what we're going to do today. It's pretty much that's done, right? You're going to watch me and go, okay, he just said that, and it just happened, right? He just said that. But if anybody else comes in my community, I would welcome the, hey, I noticed when you say this, I've been trading it this way. And who knows, you're scalping a couple of points from what I'm saying or whatever. Hey, share it. Let's collaborate. Let's get a team going. Okay? Because there's an edge to what I say, right? And we all know, if you're confident in something, but yet your trade fails, but your move happens that you said would happen, let's try to figure out a way to capitalize on it, right? And a lot of times I do, but sometimes I don't. And then I'm always trying to figure out, hey, what's the best way for me to capitalize? Is it using SPX options? Is it using wider stops and futures? There's always some puzzle to solve. All right. So just wanted to share that with you guys. All right. Now, everybody have a great day. Remember, no trade is a trade. Hope everybody has a green day. And hopefully I see you in my Discord. If I don't,